The playoffs are finally here. Today, we're going to be going through my full predictions throughout the entire playoffs, all the way through the Super Bowl. Every week at the NFL playoffs, I will be posting a separate video that gives a detailed breakdown for every single game. But for this one, we're just going to go through some key factors and our predictions for each game. Welcome back to GM Vision. We've been killing it this year. We're in the top 10% when it comes to pick'ems. So if you haven't already, like this video and subscribe to keep up with us throughout the playoffs. With that being said, let's get into our first set of games in the NFC. We're going to start with the Niners on the road in Philly. This is a game where I think a lot of people are going to take the Niners without even thinking about it. But I think there's a little more to it. The Niners have been up and down on offense, not playing very well last week for the 1 seed against the Seahawks, but then having a great game against the Bears. I think their true offense is somewhere in between that, but we saw what happens when they play a good defense. The Eagles have a great defense. They have a Super Bowl type defense. Obviously, they're the defending Super Bowl champions. I think they'll do a good job of limiting the San Francisco offense in this game. And for the Eagles offense, they really need to focus on running the football. If Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley can get it going on the ground, and if they can take care of the football and limit turnovers, I think they have a great chance in this game. If the Niners want to win this game, they're going to have to create some explosives against that Eagles defense. I think this one could be very low scoring, mostly because I don't trust the Eagles offense even against a depleted Niners defense, but I also don't like the Niners matchup with the Eagles defense. And my gut feeling is that the Eagles are going to make that extra play to get the win at home. The Packers on the road in Chicago against the Bears. I think this will be the closest game of the NFC wildcard matchups. Teams that are very familiar with each other. Jordan Love should be back for this game, so we'll have to see how he plays on his first start back. I think the key to this game for both teams is running the football effectively. These teams split the series in the regular season, but I think the Packers played better in both of those games. I think they just have the better defense right now. The Bears are tied with the Jaguars for the league lead in interceptions, so they do know how to turn the ball over, but they do give up a lot of points. It looks like the Packers will have their full collection of receivers available for this game, but so do the Bears. It looks like they'll be getting Rome Odunze back for this game. They've also been running the ball very effectively with Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift. This game is really tough to pick, but what it comes down to for me is this will be Caleb's first playoff experience, and the Packers have a better overall defense. I think that leads to them squeaking it out in the end, and they end up getting a huge win in Chicago. They will go play the 1 seed, the Seahawks. Now we're taking a look at the Rams on the road against the Panthers. This game might be a little bit more interesting than it looks. The Panthers did beat the Rams in the regular season. Stafford had some unfortunate turnovers. He did throw a pick six. I don't think that happens again in this game. But I do think the Panthers will give the Rams a little bit of trouble. But the Rams are getting a little bit more healthy. They're going to get Devontae Adams back for this game. That's a huge red zone target for Matthew Stafford. That's his go-to guy to throw those fades on the goal line. I think you might see that in this game. But the Panthers do have J.C. Horn. It'll be interesting to see who he covers in this game, whether it's Devontae in the red zone and Puka everywhere else. Whoever he's not guarding will probably get the ball. But I really think the key to this game for both teams is running the football. As much firepower as the Rams have, the most important thing for them in this game is running the football. It'll limit turnovers. It'll help them win the battle for time of possession. And for the Panthers, they're really going to have explosives. They're going to have some crazy things that go on in this game if they want to win. I just can't see that happening, so we are going to take the Rams to get the win on the road. Now looking at our first matchup in the divisional round, the Packers on the road in Seattle. This is going to be a really tough game for Green Bay. They're going up against a really good defense, coming off a bye. They're going to be healthier. They're going to be rested. And I think that D-line's going to get after Jordan Love. This Seattle team is also really good at stopping the run. If they're able to make this Packers offense one-dimensional, limit the run game with Jacobs, I can see them playing catch-up throughout this whole game. For Seattle's offense, I think they will struggle a little bit against this Green Bay Packers defense. They're definitely no pushover, and I think they could hang around in this game, at least keep it within 2 scores. I think that Green Bay is going to be playing catch-up this whole game, and I think eventually the pressure put on Jordan Love by the Seattle Seahawks defense will be too much for them to overcome late, and Seattle will get the win at home to advance to the NFC Championship game. Here we have the other NFC divisional game, the Eagles at home versus the Rams. This game is going to be very entertaining. These two teams have had some great games between each other. And I think this one will be closer than a lot of people think. The Rams are going to be hot coming off a win against Carolina. And I think a lot of people assume this Rams offense will keep rolling. But they're going to be going up against a very good Eagles defense. Their complete defense, from the D-line to the linebackers to the secondary. And I think it's going to be a struggle going up against a team that they've played before to continue to surprise this Eagles defense. However, they do have the playmakers to make it happen. Stafford is playing at an MVP level. And when you look at the Eagles offense versus this Rams defense, I think that's where the mismatch comes into play. This Rams defense also has a great defensive line. If they're not able to protect Hurts, it's going to be a long day for this Eagles team. They're also very good at stopping the run. So if Saquon Barkley is not able to get going, it's going to be a long day for them. I think he's a key factor in them even beating San Francisco in their first round of the playoffs. So overall, I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to get it going in the pass game enough to keep up scoring points with the Rams. And the Rams will end up getting the win on the road to go play Seattle in the NFC Championship game. Now we're going to start off with the Rams on the road in Seattle in what was probably the best regular season game when these two played. I think we're going to get similar fireworks in this game. I think it's going to be high scoring. It's going to be very similar to that crazy game we all saw a few weeks ago. This game is really a toss-up for me. It's really hard to choose. But I just like what the Rams are doing more. And it's really going to be a test for Sam Darnold to see if he can get it done in the playoffs. Really, for that reason alone, I feel a lot more comfortable with the Rams. I trust Stafford a whole lot more. You're really nitpicking in this game. Both these teams are really great. They have great defensive lines. They have great defenses. They have great offenses. So if you're looking for something, that would be it. And that is why we are going to take the Rams to beat the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game to advance to the Super Bowl. Now moving to the AFC side, to what's probably the best game of the AFC wildcard weekend, the Bills on the road in Jacksonville. This is going to be a great game between two great quarterbacks. Josh Allen, who's been an MVP, versus Trevor Lawrence, who's playing at an MVP level. The strength of the Bills is running the football with James Cook, but they're going up against the number one rush defense in the NFL against running backs. It's going to be a tough matchup for them, especially looking at the rest of that Bills offense. They really have no weapons outside of that tight end position. They don't really have anything that scares you at the receiver position. And the Jaguars, like we talked about earlier, are tied with the Bears for a league in interceptions. They're at the top of the league in turnovers in general. I think that's the difference in this football game. I just don't think the Bills have enough on offense to score enough on this Jaguars defense, especially when this Jaguars offense is playing at an elite level. The Bills are one of the best in the league against the pass, so that is a good matchup with this Jaguars offense, but they are going to be without their starting cornerback, Maxwell Harrison. That's a big loss for them. So I think you see this Jaguars offense have a good day throughout the air, but the weakness for the Bills is their run defense. The Jaguars haven't had to run it as of late. They've just been blowing teams out by throwing it through the air. I think they really focus on running the football in this game, and they get out to a good lead against the Bills. And it's just going to be too much for them to overcome with the lack of weapons at the receiver position. And the Jaguars beat the Bills at home to move on to the divisional round. Now we're going to move down to the Chargers on the road against the Patriots. This is an interesting matchup. The Patriots have arguably been the best team in the AFC so far this year. They have had a pretty easy schedule, so it is a little hard to judge, but Drake May is playing at an MVP level. I think this is a very good matchup for them. Although the Chargers have been playing a little bit better on defense, the problem for the Chargers is going to be their offense. For them, they're really going to have to get the run game going. That's going to be tough against this Patriots defense. And they're also going to have to protect Justin Herbert. That's the biggest thing for this Chargers team, is keeping him upright. If he is protected, he is capable of playing at an MVP level. Justin Herbert's a great quarterback, and he could end up willing his team to a win in this game. But when looking at it as a whole, this Patriots team is just better overall. They're playing at home. They got a lot of momentum, and the Chargers have been up and down all year. I think they end up getting the job done at home to move on to play the Jags. Finally, to see who plays the 1 seed, we have the Texans on the road in Pittsburgh. Right off the bat, I think a lot of people are taking the Texans without even thinking. But I think this game could be a lot closer. The Steelers do have Aaron Rodgers. They're going to be getting DK Metcalf back. Their defense is playing pretty good, despite a few coverage busts last week against the Ravens. I don't think a lot of people realize how inconsistent this Texans offense is. They don't really have a consistent running game, and CJ Stroud has been turning the ball over a lot. They have Nico Collins, but outside of that, they have some young receivers who have been up and down throughout the year. They do have a lot of promise, but right now it's just a little shaky on offense, especially with that offensive line being not very good this year. They're going up against a very good Steelers defensive line. I think that's a matchup the Steelers could take advantage of in this game. But that being said, this Texans defense is probably the best in the league. They're going to make it really tough for Aaron Rodgers to have any sort of success. Going up against a really good defense, a quarterback needs to be able to be mobile and really make Houston cover every blade of grass, Because Rodgers is not capable of that, I just don't think they'll have much success on offense, and that'll allow the Texans to kind of hang around and figure it out on offense, which will lead to them getting the win on the road in Pittsburgh in this one, although I do think it'll be closer than people think. Now looking at the Texans on the road in Denver against the Broncos, two of the best defenses in the NFL going head to head. I think the Texans offense is really going to struggle against this great Denver defensive line. They're not going to be able to run the ball very well, and it's going to be tough to keep CJ Stroud upright. I can see him turning the ball over multiple times in this game, and the Broncos could jump out to a lead early, but I don't really trust this Broncos offense either. I don't think they're going to have much success against this Texans defense. So the real key in this game is which defense can force more turnovers and give their offense shorter fields. With the way these two teams are playing, I think that'll be the Broncos that play a little bit better overall. It's a toss-up, but I do trust Denver's offense more than I do Houston's. So we are going to take them to make it to the AFC Championship and beat Houston at home. We have Jacksonville going into New England. Both these teams are going to be red hot coming into this game. Two MVP level quarterbacks. But I think this game comes down to the Jaguars having more experience against good teams this year than the Patriots. I don't think a lot of people will see their win over the Chargers as convincing. I think people will be more confident in the Jaguars coming off a win over the Bills. And from a matchup standpoint, I think the Jaguars are really going to make this Patriots offense one-dimensional. They're not going to be able to run the football. It's going to be on Drake May to make plays. I think this could be a game where people have their aha moment. You saw it a few weeks ago when Drake May had a few turnovers in a game that kind of cost them early. They ended up winning, but against a good team, people were saying he wouldn't get away with that. I think that happens in this game. The Jaguars get up early, and Drake May has to force some footballs. He turns the ball over, and the Jaguars get a win on the road in New England to go have a rematch against the Broncos in Mile High. Now looking at the AFC Championship, the Jaguars in Mile High against the Broncos. We already saw these two teams play in Mile High. It was a slow start for both teams, but the Jaguars got hot. They got a lead, and Denver ended up playing catch up the whole game. They ended up tying it at 17, and then the Jaguars capitalized off some turnovers and ended up pulling ahead 34-17. It's kind of what I talked about with the Patriots. I think it'll be a similar game again, but the Jaguars just get ahead, and this Broncos offense that isn't very good, they're not very explosive. They're going to have to make big plays to come back in this game. It's going to lead to some turnovers, maybe some interceptions from Bo Nix. I think this game will definitely be closer than their matchup where the Jaguars won by 14. But I do think it's going to have a similar feeling with the Jaguars really just dominating the game overall. Who knows? You could even see a 70-plus yard field goal from Cam Little in that altitude. Either way, I think the Jaguars get the win and advance to the Super Bowl against the Rams. Now we have our Super Bowl matchup, the Rams against the Jags in San Francisco. This is a rematch. The Rams played the Jags in London. They pretty much blew them out, but it was earlier in the season. The Jags really weren't clicking altogether on offense. They had a bunch of players hurt in that game. That's a game where Travis Hunter had over 100 yards and a touchdown, and after that game, he got injured and was out for the rest of the year. I think both these teams are playing completely differently than they were in that London game, and I think this game will be a lot closer. But this game will really come down to the trenches. The Rams really dominated the Jaguars in that game in the trenches. They sacked Trevor Lawrence a lot. There was a lot of pressure. Receivers didn't have enough time to get open. But the Jaguars did make changes to their offensive line. I think that'll be a big improvement in this game. I think this game ends up being a shootout. Stafford's going to take advantage of this Jaguars secondary. They're not the best, but they are opportunistic. I think you could see him throw a pick in this game, and the Jags get a huge play from their defense. I do think they make the Rams a little one-dimensional. The Rams did do a lot of 3 tight end sets, which the Jaguars weren't ready for. I think they'll be ready for that in this game. There won't be many surprises. And Liam Cohen goes up against his former boss, and there's just a little magic in the air. And Cam Little drills a long field goal as time expires, and the Jacksonville Jaguars win the Super Bowl, the first time making the Super Bowl in franchise history, and the first time winning a Super Bowl in franchise history. It's going to be a crazy playoffs, so if you haven't already, like this video and subscribe. We're going to have a lot more content coming. In the comments, drop your predictions for these playoff games, give me your Super Bowl winner, and come back later in the week for my detailed breakdowns for each wildcard game this week. That's all I got for you guys, and I'll see you next time.